usual. What remains to be seen is where does it make sense to add logging.
Well, for the pnM tracker, for instance, now always emails. It would be nice if some logging function or a messaging function would be active for an administrator.
Yeah, always have to do it later on. I think later an update. This way that we ignore the environment things in that space once you only get a short notification saying that something happened. I will respond about it later on.
It was just an example, but for
there's
anything you want to log.
There's certainly places where it makes sense. We need to, identify those places. The nice thing is doing logging will take you one line of code, and it's just going to work. And you can configure it in config.php. You can say, I want my database logging to go to a file, I want my security logging to go to database, and whatever else. So it's pretty nice and configurable. Also, what we have is mostly to be useful. Integrated metadata support, that's there, that works. What we have to figure out is how do we integrate it in the front end? Or how do we integrate it in such a way that it's actually used? At this point, it's the theoretical potential that's there. If you've looked at Joomla gives you on the right side a little column of stuff that's metadata. The question that we have to ask how do we integrate this in a standard way that the architecture takes care of it, and not that every level author has to rewrite it. So we'll come up with something there, I'm sure. It works, it's there, we'll use it. Same for attribution, object logging, workflow. Workflow is Drag-based, we wrote it from scratch. I have no idea exactly how it works because I haven't had time to look at it. It's there, supposedly it works. All of that should come together by the time .8 is released. We'll have lots of nice, new, and interesting possibilities. So, module comparison across the version. File size is the original file size as it is distributed. Code size is basically everything except for code removed, white space removed, and comments removed. To give you a better idea. So what you see here are a few modules that are pretty much the same in terms of that work. Well, the problem is in comparing 7.6.2 to .8 is a lot of stuff wasn't templated, so it really didn't make sense to compare. So I chose 3 modules which were templated, just to give you an idea. And you can look at the numbers yourself. The nice thing is you're saving somewhere around 30 to 40% of the code on each module. That is a huge improvement in my opinion. Usually companies are happy if they just squeeze out 10% or something. We squeeze out 15 a third and whatever. So that's certainly an improvement. It should hopefully help make it faster. It should help consume less memory, which in turn will scale better. And last but not least, it should help improve quality because we're relying more on standard functions in the architecture rather than having the individual modules do it. So interesting is the quotes module. The old quotes module, you don't always run it. The new one is, if you look at the file size, it's half of it, otherwise the code size, it's 40% less. It's 40% less while doing significantly more. It has quotes as the first module, but we put in the support for the .8 category manager for categorization. And so we have categorization into multiple categories if you want to, and the filtering based on categories is 40% less code. That, in my mind, is pretty darn cool. The other thing that I should mention about categorization, I think forgot to put that in the previous slide, is that I think the categorization support that we have in .8 is, again, pretty darn cool. The only thing you have to do as a module author, it literally is add one form field where you select your category. That is it. Everything else is done by the architecture, and you can map to multiple categories if you want to. I don't think we can make it any easier. Again, good feature, good stuff. Takes you as a module author about 3 minutes later. Really cool.
How about permission checks on categories?
Support is there. It's not really being used. But is it
easy to implement? Or
permission checks on Well, that's not something you as the module author will have to worry about.
Oh, okay.
It will be done centrally by the categories module. Okay, so that's a nice improvement, I think, from version to version. Again, a survey of OSS CLS systems, craft order or value creator. Being a not being a businessman, but being responsible for running a business, the question is always, what ultimately a customer cares about the value you can create for them. Now, there's the value in the solution that we can propose, but the other way of looking at it is, what is the value of Postman as a project? What is the value of the code it contains in terms of, what would it cost the company to write something like this from scratch? Not quite realistic, because the company writing it from scratch would have a set goal that they would write to, which would make it easier. The numbers which are coming out are taken from a tool which was used to estimate the cost and complexity for the Linux kernel. Apparently, a company once made an offer for they would pay $50,000 for a one-time snapshot of the Linux kernel under a non-UGPL license. So somebody wrote this program to estimate how expensive it will be to write the Linux kernel, and came up with, I don't know, like $1 billion or something like that. So the offer was sweeter. And even if they would have come up with $1 billion, the offer would still have been rejected. The contestant, most new, PHP new, Joomla, otherwise known as we can make the bad and the ugly, but pretty good, I'm sure. Code metrics. PHP new contains 180. Oh yeah, the other thing interesting, so I downloaded PHP new Joomla and download that. PHP new, they're now in version 7 something. To tell you the truth, I have no idea what those guys have been doing for the past 3 years, because it's like all the way back to close to 7.2 with no improvement, or at least none that I can find. So I don't know what they've been doing, but okay. So according to this metric, it would cost $6 million to rewrite Postman from scratch. Joomla would cost $2 million, which is probably a good sign. Actually, a good sign for Joomla, that is, because Postman has very little in terms of architecture. So whatever features you want, the module has to do. Joomla has more in terms of architecture, so the modules can be smaller. Postman Core would be about $2.5 million. Value add-ons would be about another $900,000. Total $3.5 million to rewrite Postman from scratch. Now, just for comparison. No, I didn't write all that. A lot of it is just integrated from other stuff. But just to give you an idea of the amount of software that we use, that we distribute, and that we deal with, it's pretty substantial. It would be also pretty substantial for a company. Not for Oracle and Microsoft, of course, but for a smaller, reasonably sized company. So,